Good evening, everybody. Whether you're watching on two-way or on YouTube, thank you for joining us. It's been one of the most remarkable three-week stretches in modern American history and presidential politics, starting with the debate and President Biden's disastrous performance, and of course, almost a week ago now, the attempted assassination of President Trump, and then the convention. And we've all experienced this, I think, as best we can to understand it, but these are big things. What's happening now, which I've written about today, most of you have seen, with Speaker Pelosi and former Speaker Pelosi and the president, is an incredible story. It's an incredible story. And her role over the course of the last 3 weeks, and even before, where I have some reporting that I'm not quite ready to put public yet because I want to get it a little bit more rounded out. Her role in having concern about President Biden and about Kamala Harris predates the debate. And what she's done over the last 3 weeks, as often is the case when Nancy Pelosi engages in a complicated political maneuver, we're seeing very little of it. We're seeing very little of what she's actually doing. But what we've seen in the last few days, after President Biden agreed to get off the ticket, after conversations began about how things were going to go in the aftermath of that, when Speaker Pelosi recognized with the clock ticking that he was going to have to get more encouragement, I use that word euphemistically, we've now seen extraordinary steps of Pelosi allies, Schumer allies, and others engaged now in an effort to get Joe Biden to do what they believe he must do and what he's said he would do to get off the ticket. But as I wrote earlier today, he doesn't like to make decisions. He still thinks he should be the nominee. He still has concerns about his vice president stepping up. He still wants to play a role in all of this beyond what others would like him to play. And what we're witnessing now is two very close allies with a shared goal of keeping Donald Trump out of the White House going at it in a way with all the paradoxes I've talked about. The more they try to use power politics to get him out, the more they try to humiliate him, the more he gets his back up. And his anger at Nancy Pelosi, at Chuck Schumer, at Barack Obama is pronounced. And it's of no surprise whatsoever, because this is the nature of how Joe Biden has operated throughout his career. And on a personal level, not a political level, because their political judgment is he needs to go. This is treacherous, what they're doing on a personal level. The concern of congressional Democrats is certainly about the poll numbers and the Electoral College outlook. It's certainly about a lack of faith that the president has the capacity to fight back as they see a loss of mental acuity. But it's also about this issue that's been discussed, but not enough based on my conversations with Democrats, which is a concern that they'll be asked to defend not just what did they know and when did they know it about the president's acuity, but that they'll be asked to defend how is it you're running on a ticket with this guy who a majority of us don't think can be president and should be president. And it's a cruel irony for the Democrats, who have spent the last almost 10 years saying, why are Republicans not paying a price for running with Donald Trump? Now, of course, in the midterms, they did. In most of the elections, they seem to have paid a price for that. But nothing like the price Democrats believe they are paying now and that they will pay if Joe Biden stays on the ticket. Congressman Seth Moulton of Massachusetts, one of the Democrats who's come out today saying Joe Biden should not be the nominee, is very good friends with Joe Biden. Someone's going to help me by telling me the answer, because I didn't have time to look it up because I just got home from Milwaukee. I believe he was good friends with Beau Biden. I think that's the case. And he wrote an op-ed saying when he was with the president overseas around the D-Day commemoration, the president didn't recognize him. Now, some people might say what some people said about Clooney, which is, why are you telling us this now? But that is, again, from right inside the tent, another close friend, a close ally, saying the president didn't recognize him, and that is another betrayal. Again, power politics, but it's a betrayal on a personal level. What's going on now is just a from the point of view of the Biden, Hunter, Jill, presidents. This is betrayal of people they've worked with, people they've been friends with, people they've been part of a Democratic family with for decades. And the personal story is dramatic and extraordinary. I hope to be able to write a book about it. But it also has huge implications because although I think eventually they'll break him, they're now trying to break him with methodology that could easily backfire. Could easily backfire. I'm going to give you some good news to the Democrats. Republicans I talk to all day, if there's a Harris Mark Kelly ticket, Republicans are starting to see that as not just the best option, but some Republicans are starting to see that as formidable. That if Harris steps up and performs well, if Kelly is what many of them think he can be, they think that could be something that could change this race back to something where we're talking about battle over electoral votes. Arizona potentially in play. I talked to someone today who attended a fundraiser with Kelly a few years ago and basically said when he left, everybody said, why is that guy not talked about as a presidential candidate? Biographically, attitudinally, in terms of media skills, he's a very, very interesting a potential combination with Kamala Harris. I still have no indication that anybody would challenge her. I think we're still looking, if Joe Biden goes through with what he said he would do and get off the ticket, I think we're looking at a contested convention that's not contested, where you have a Harris ticket. I'd say I would downgrade the possibility of Bashir being on this ticket. I would downgrade the possibility of Cooper being on this ticket. I would say Kelly and maybe Shapiro at this point. And if the Republicans are right, it will be if she does form a ticket, it will be Kelly. And again, it's an interesting and formidable possibility. When might the president change his current posture? As some of you know, he announced today that he was going to campaign next week. And his campaign chair went on Morning Joe and said he's all in. There was a lot of conversation about how he would get out as early as Sunday, and a lot of conversation about the role of celebrating him during the convention. And the trust is being broken down because of what's happened, of Nancy Pelosi and others orchestrating a member of the Black Caucus, a member of the Hispanic Caucus, another senator and an incumbent senator in a very competitive race. These things are happening to pressure him, and he's not reacting well to it by all accounts. And so I don't really know how this is going to go. I don't really know what the timetable would be, whether he'll ask for a truce or whether these attempts to humiliate him will lead him to say no, he's just going to keep the delegates and go forward. The vice president did this call today with donors. It got a lot of buildup once it occurred that it was happening, or once it was known it was happening. According to the New York Times account, I haven't had time to do my own reporting on it. She got on for 5 minutes and it was mostly happy talk. And these donors are the key to this. They're never going to convince the president that it's about the polls because he'll say he can still win no matter how far behind. They're never going to convince him it's about his acuity because he goes to Michigan, he goes to North Carolina, and he has a big rally. What they can convince him of, because it's factually true and he gets it, is the money situation. And as much as it's been reported that some donors have closed their wallets to him and to the down ballot, there's a growing realization that is where they may be able to checkmate him, that he simply doesn't have enough small dollars or large dollars to have a functioning campaign for the next few months. I'm going to open it up to folks. I'm waiting to see for a few people who I'm going to call on if they do join us. In fact, let me do that since I see someone here. Alex Castellanos, I'd love for you to come on if you would. And you said yesterday, I think it was yesterday, that you thought the Democratic ticket could temporarily go ahead if Harris launched well. I'm just wondering. I don't know how familiar you are with Kelly, but your thoughts on a Harris Kelly ticket, if properly launched and managed, is that something that could have staying power, not just take the lead, but make this a competitive contest? Oh, sorry about that. I thought you did. Yes, unmute, please. Let us hear from you.
Hi there.
Hi,
Yeah,
thank you, Alex.
Kelly's an interesting guy. He is not a Southerner, but he's a space hero. So he brings military,
Much of the astronaut vote.
yeah, a lot of the outer space vote, and adds, but no, that balances a black woman ticket, strong male military credibility. It would be a pretty good ticket. Now, I've seen him campaign and have never been that impressed. His record, though, is oatmealish.
What's the
He's got
Alex? What Alex? Sorry to interrupt. What's the context in which you've seen him campaign?
in the Senate race in Arizona. As a matter of fact, I was advised on a few ads against Mark Kelly and had a good look at his record and saw him campaign a bit. And he's neutral. He's a bland color. There's not a lot there, but he wears a leather jacket. He's he conveys strength. He's a go along guy as far as the record I've seen in the Senate. You can stick a lot of Biden to him, but politically, he would bring moderation to a ticket that would be attacked as being too woke. So, and girl guy. So I think it would be a strong hand of cards for the Democrats to play.
Yeah. Um, what again? Normally, the bottom of the ticket doesn't matter. We all know that, or should know that it's a 2 day story, and as long as you pick someone who's seen disqualified, I think he'd pass the qualified to be president test. Again, sometimes it's not fairly applied; it's either too tightly or too loosely. But I think he'd pass that. Uh, so, as a sustaining matter, I think he's a good cultural fit, obviously for his home state, but also for the ex-urban and rural areas they want to compete in in um, in the blue wall. And I think I try not to
He
say this in a
makes
crack.
he
Sorry, go
makes
ahead.
Kamala more experienced and less scary.
Yeah, and I want to say this in a non glib way. His family has dealt with attempted murder, assassination, whatever word you want to use, and so there's a lot of emotion there. And of course, the Democrats are going to run on gun safety, and you've got in that family, you've got the ultimate example of the impact of guns in this country. So he brings a lot. Alex, again, you're so smart about the human side of politics. What do you think of the what's going on now between Pelosi and Biden, and can you compare it to anything you've ever seen in politics?
Never seen anything like this in my entire life. Pelosi is brilliant, tough as nails. When, as I understand it, she was arguing with Biden and making the argument that he couldn't win this thing. And when he expressed doubts, she got his pollster on the phone, which
Yeah,
sounds to me like a total setup. Like she had this thing thought out, the road paved, and coup de grace. So I think that was very sophisticated, very elegantly done. But I think you're right on the money, Mark. That the tighter they put the screws to this guy, the more he rebels. That's who he
yeah,
is, and
yeah,
he is not in a cognitive position now to get out a calculator and do the math on this. He is functioning emotionally. I think they're going to have to go all the way. and eliminate all, close all doors out of the room but one. This idea that they're going to try to do it as gently as they can, that's not going to last more than another few hours.
Yep. I I read somewhere today, I can't remember who reported that the leadership of the House and Senate Democrats told their caucuses, "You are free to fire on Joe Biden at will now. No restraint." And we've heard for a long time there are plenty more members who haven't come out against him. We still had AOC defending him, you know, but again, the question is the quantity and quality of what we're about to see, unless he follows through, is quite something. And as you said, and I've searched my memory, I've never seen anything like this. Even between kind of enemies and rivals, but between two close friends and close allies, this is an extraordinary moment for the party. And of course, the clock ticks. There's only so long before between now and when that roll call is in a couple weeks, and if they haven't solved it by then, it becomes not impossible to get him off the ticket, but a much different proposition. Alex, stay with us. Jump in anytime. Um, I'm wondering, Dan, if you'll come in.
Sure.
And again, those of you who don't know, Dan has worked in Democratic politics. He's worked with Nancy Pelosi. He's worked with Secretary Clinton. Dan, I'd love for you to talk about this escalation with some of the new people who have come out today, including Seth Moulton, a veteran, and Senator Brown from Ohio. Just where you think we are, and if you have any sense of where it might go.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, she is playing chess and Biden's playing whack-a-mole checkers. I mean, basically, we talked about this the other day. She is so strategic. She never makes a move without anticipating the next two or three moves, ahead. And, every time there's been a lull in the last, a couple weeks, a day or two, and everyone thinks maybe Biden is past it, she just calmly pulls out the next card. And I think, today, I forget where I read it, in this kind of shadow boxing that they're doing, that the CBC is getting frustrated. You saw a few CBC members today, right? Well, that's the next card here, that more and more of them will come out. And I just, again, Biden is just playing reactive whack-a-mole, and I don't see how he wins this. And I just would never bet against Nancy Pelosi in an inside baseball game within the Democratic Party. She is beyond the Hall of Fame. She's the Mount Rushmore. And, basically Biden's just fewer and fewer people, in the boat. So I just think, to your point, Mark, like, the clock is ticking now. Tonight, he's saying he wants to get past Netanyahu, right? It's just kind of, you're running the clock. She thinks it. And she tried, if you recall early in this story, there were members came out and said, let's make the convention about him. They tried the really positive, you'll be remembered historically, and it didn't work. And so she just keeps ratcheting it up. And I think now it's just all guns blazing. And, it's hard to read this. It's sad to watch, but she's going to pummel him into submission, if I had to bet.
Yeah. Yeah. So you talk to a lot of staff folks, as do I, and what you're seeing now in this part, this forum is two ways: about civility, it's about bipartisanship. It's also about trying to have sophisticated conversations to give you all a sense of how people, and professionals talk about it. Some of the staff for weeks now have been very despondent and believe he should go. And you've got now a division. It's widely reported he's talking to fewer and fewer people. But the blaming of the Obama people and of Obama himself, there's some reporting out there now about how angry President Biden is at Barack Obama and at the Obama people. And you've got some staff people who are angry at their colleagues. There's accusations against some of the people who are still in the inner circle about their motives, and very little anger at from the staff people who think he should withdraw. Very little anger at the Hill, and almost a rooting them on. The anger at the Hill, and in particular, and the anger at President Obama from from President Biden, again, extraordinary. Their relationship, the closeness of it, has always been overstated, and so it's not as big a rupture in some ways as might seem. But obviously, they were partners for 8 years, and there's a closeness there professionally and around Bo that I don't know exactly where this goes. Now, couple things. One is someone just raised a question. I'm going to outsource this to somebody. Google it and come back. When is Hunter's sentencing and when is Donald Trump sentencing? Can somebody maybe just Google and put it in the chat for those 2 dates, the President Trump sentencing and President and Hunter sentencing, and then for good measure, let's do Hunter's. When's Hunter's second trial supposed to start? Interested in those 3 dates. So if somebody could put those 3 dates in the chat, that'd be awesome. Dan, thank you. Let's go to some questions. Mark, I'll mute. Go ahead.
Hi, Mark. Thank you for this great platform. My question is this: is there any thought amongst the Democrats that by putting Kamala on the ticket or as the presidential candidate, and kind of, chances are she loses, and this way the Democrats can kind of rid themselves of her, looking forward like to 2028. We let her take the loss, she's out of here, and then we can focus on 2028 with more.
No, Mark, I'll stop you. No. There are reasons why they're largely a consensus that she would and should be the nominee. Let me just stop. Hunter Biden's sentencing has not been set. I thought it had been, but according to what's in the chat, it hasn't been. President Trump's sentencing has been postponed to September 18th. I really thought his sentencing had been set, but everybody's saying in the chat no. Okay, so why are they settling on her? The politics of the party, non-white, female vice president. I think it's a little bit overstated how much a revolt there would be in the general population. But there's no doubt that she's got some very fervent supporters in the Democratic elite community. And there's no doubt that a lot of the delegates, I think, would feel it was a real slight, number one. Number two, because of that, no one's going to challenge her, I don't think. And time is going to be of the essence. She's got access to the money that no one else would have access to. The money that's been raised. She has access to the campaign team, not all of whom are her biggest fans, but she can launch quicker. She's got national political experience. The other people we're talking about, potential candidates, really don't. And this is not, despite what some Republicans say and some journalists say, there is no they. People say, well, they should make it this person. There is no they. The closest thing to a they is Joe Biden, and he's not really in a position to be the they. So this is happening kind of organically. But the people who are making the judgment to not try to figure out how to recruit someone to beat her, those people are very have strong fingertip feel and understanding of the Democratic Party and what the traffic will bear. So, Mark, your position is held. My sense from your tone is you're a Trump voter. Is that correct?
I'm a Trump voter.
Yeah. So a lot of Trump voters and not an insignificant number of Democrats think she can't win. Not that she'd be a long shot, but that she'll never win. And by the way, that's kind of the position of Joe Biden. At least it has been. But I will tell you that because we're a 50-50 country, because although I've said this before, she has problems that Joe Biden doesn't have in terms of winning a general election, no doubt. She shares some of the problems that Joe Biden has in terms of winning a general election, but she doesn't have all of his problems, including and especially 80% of the voters wouldn't say she doesn't have the mental acuity to be president. They might have other concerns, but they don't have that. So if she starts well, if she's staffed well, if they get a break, and if she has someone like Mark Kelly on the ticket who turns out to be great, I don't think it's right analytically to say she can't beat Donald Trump. I don't think she'd be the favorite, and I think there's a lot she'd have to prove to be even competitive. But I don't think it's right to say she couldn't win. And I think if you're a Republican, one of the things you hear now from some Republicans is maybe we're a little overconfident. Maybe Republicans are assuming the Democrats can't put this together. They're not afraid of her, but her with Mark Kelly and a little bit of luck could make this something that's competitive. Mark, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's go to ML Shaw. Unmute, please.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you so much. I just want to say I really do appreciate your time with all due respect. I love that show with Joe Heileman, and I'll do it your style. I am from St. Louis, Missouri, center right, independent. I'm leaning toward Trump. I am anti-Biden. I just wanted to say, unfortunately, I think that the Biden-Harris administration has been radioactive. It throws off radiation and kills anything that goes near it politically. So I don't think it really matters who she picks to be her VP or whatnot. There's just that it's just gravity. But I was just wondering if you thought that if maybe, just maybe, if there was some kind of really strong push to really make her serious, get serious about her, that the only way that that would work, because the Democrats are coming back from such a pit. They really have to do something to get eyeballs on it. What would it be if if Biden would step down, make Kamala Harris the active president, and give her a running start from that point of view, from that position? Because Joe Biden is done. That way they can save face, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to game this out, but like I don't think it really matters who Kamala Harris picks. If it's two women, even more, why not go all out? If I think that would be suicidal, to be honest with you. But I just want to say thank you, and I'm happy I found this quite a few weeks ago. Thank you.
How'd you find two-way?
YouTube. I am a YouTube nut.
Yeah, so the algorithm served us up to you.
Yes, I'm very 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 political, inside baseball type guy, kind of Wall Street Journal, New York Times. But I absolutely loved this, and I just wish, well, it doesn't matter. Sorry, I would just start reminiscing about nostalgia. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Look, Republicans don't have a lot of respect for her and her capacity, but I've known her a long time. I've said this before. You're underestimating the possibility that in a short campaign she could pull this off. I think, first of all, I don't think Joe Biden I know from my reporting, he doesn't want to step down. He wants to finish out his term. He doesn't want to slink away. He wants the ceremony and the honor of finishing this out. And I also think, probably net, it would be a challenge for her to run a presidential campaign and be commander in chief. You could argue that like Rose Garden strategy, but that's not the view of most people I know. So I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't know that it would help her. Mark, thank you. Or not Mark. Thank you for the question. Rick, go ahead and unmute. Go ahead, Rick.
Hey, Mark. I think you have rarely, among most people, understood the South. I'm in South Carolina. And so I can tell you that if the Democrats overstep Kamala Harris, they're finished.
What do you mean by overstep? What do you mean by overstep?
Step over.
Kick her
to the curb.
Yeah.
Kick her to the curb. They're finished. They can't do that. I live among I live among many African American people. And they are in love with Kamala Harris. And if you were to step over her, they will abandon not just this year, they will abandon you forever. And so that's the risk that Democrats face. And I think you know that. I don't think that most people that live in the Northeast, that have never really lived around African Americans, understand. And I've even asked people that interact with, black people that I interact with. How would you feel about this? And they are adamant. They are so upset that you would even consider stepping over the first black woman,
right?
That
well,
was
I don't think it's.
president.
I don't think they're going to do that. So, but I take your point.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't
okay.
either.
Okay, Noah, I sent you a link to a tweet with a great photo of Donald Trump from tonight. I'd love if you get that up and show it to everybody. It's a picture of Donald Trump with his two top campaign aides. It's kind of extraordinary.
Mark, can I say a couple more things?
Absolutely, go ahead.
So I know that most of the media thought that Donald Trump's speech last night was way too long and it was meandering. But here's what people like me think. People that are not misogynists, we're not xenophobes, we're not bigots. We just think that life under Donald Trump was better. And he said some very true things. He said, we don't know that Putin would have invaded Ukraine, but he didn't. And we don't know that Hamas and Hezbollah would have invaded, thrown thousands of rockets into Israel. All we know is that they didn't. And that's his argument, and I think it's unassailable.
Okay. Let's stop for 1 second, Rick. There's the picture. And you see there Chris LaCivita on the left, Susie Wiles across from President Trump, and the President Trump's back. You don't normally see the two of them almost ever, rarely, and they're there with the president. So it's kind of a striking photo. I believe that's from tonight in New Jersey. Rick, thank you. So Brittany Prime put in the chat the link to the New York Times story, which I had started to read but hadn't finished. It's kind of an extraordinary story, and it goes into the Joe Biden's anger at Barack Obama, his anger at Nancy Pelosi, and it also says, as someone referenced earlier, that I think Dan did, that now they're saying that President Biden won't agree to make a decision about timing of stepping down until after Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday comes to Washington. I think Speaker Pelosi again is going to ratchet this up, and she knows as well as anyone does that Joe Biden is not a great decision maker, and that he's going to require some pressure. Let's go to Dan. Dan, go ahead and unmute.
Hey, Mark. I'll start this off with a Newman quote. I loathe Donald Trump. As you said a few days ago, he started with birtherism and he ended with January 6th and the election denial, which I think has thrown the country into chaos for 50 years. No one's going to trust anything. Every election is rigged. It's just a terrible thing. And for people to say, well, it was better when Trump was here. Yeah, there were some things that were better. COVID happened during Trump. Was he responsible for that? No. Was he responsible for the non-invasions? Maybe, maybe not. Hard to think. History works in different ways. Inflation comes and goes, different policies. You can't just assign different policies to a president at a time. Biden has got to go. Trump has to have a prosecutor take it to him when he lies constantly, and someone to bring it. Kamala is a professional. She's got a legal mind to have it all calculated out. Now, I know I'm not going to say, hey, she's the best thing since sliced bread, but there are attributes. And for her poll numbers, I could reach the same poll numbers as Kamala right now. I mean, it's just, it's a non-starter. People might start to dislike her. That's possible. And I do think, Kelly, I think you need a little toxic masculinity to go with it. So that's where I'm at. I just think
Dan, thank you. I brought Brittany in because she took an issue with something you said, and I want you two to have the discussion the two-way way in a nice civil fashion. Brittany, please make the point you made and let Dan respond relating to Trump versus Biden. Did you not put something in the chat taking issue with what Dan said about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden?
I did not. I was replying to ML Shaw.
Oh, all right. All right,
Get
Dan,
the
stand
threading,
by.
Mark. Get the
Brittany,
threading. Come on.
Brittany, as long as you're here, let me ask you about a Harris Kelly ticket. Does that seem formidable to you?
Well, I'll put it back to you. Does Harris win the election if she wins Arizona but loses Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin?
No.
So what's the point?
Well,
I favor
he
Shapiro in
could.
that way. If you're
Yeah.
gonna pick, if it's gonna be one of those states, go for a governor, go for Shapiro.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you think about what's going on between Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden?
I would never want to go against Nancy Pelosi. And, kind of like Nancy Pelosi doesn't put something on the floor unless she's going to win. I don't think she would have started this process unless she was going to win.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Brittany.
She knows
Thank
how
you,
to
Dan.
count her votes.
Yeah. Thank you both. Jordan, unmute. Go ahead, please.
Hi. Hi, just two questions. One, what happens to the campaign cash with Biden theoretically if Kamala ends up not being the nominee or there's a lot of contention? Does it go back to the DNC? Does it stay? So what happens there? And second, I've heard a few people talk about kind of Pelosi having to ratchet things up a bit. I think one person said pound Biden into submission. What exactly does that look like in the next few weeks if it escalates to that point?
Well, on your first question, the lawyers seem to agree that if she's the nominee because her name's on the door, she can take those hard dollars and spend them as hard dollars. If it's someone else, they go to the DNC and I believe convert to not hard dollars. I believe. I don't know that piece, but because I think it's going to be her, I haven't really looked into it. You're asking what's Nancy Pelosi's next 7 steps if President Biden doesn't agree to live up to what he agreed to?
Correct. I mean, as somebody that's worked in politics, I have an idea, but I don't know, the side of things.
I think the Seth Moulton op-ed piece is the start of humiliating him and embarrassing him and making the pain of it, right? There's also there's a quality question of what people are going to say. There's also the quantity question of how many more members of the caucus will come out against him. The number is now getting closer to 50, and then I think there's also the donors, and that's been the card she's been playing most aggressively. And of course, people have talked from the beginning about a Nixon-like trip to the White House. Schumer and Pelosi and Jeffries, maybe Obama go see him. The problem was identified, I think, by Speaker Gingrich early on, is they don't have any leverage really. But I think it's a question of embarrassing him, of making his desire to have a legacy be undermined. But they may be miscalculating, because, as I said at the beginning, it may be that the more they do, the more he gets his backup as opposed to surrendering. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what it would be. Go ahead.
Just one more question. I think Rick was the gentleman from South Carolina earlier. He was talking about African Americans and what could happen if Kamala is stepped over. Sunny Hostin on The View repeatedly says this and makes a very good, this point over and over again, that the Black female vote in the country will just not show up whatsoever. To what degree is that maybe a bluff? Is that true? In your experience, is there a great chance of that happening?
There's definitely a chance. It's unprecedented, right? We don't really know, but and I'm not minimizing the passion, the strength of the passion. I think I have no doubt that it's at least slightly exaggerated by those who feel strongly themselves. At least slightly exaggerated by those who feel strongly themselves. But it's not. Again, it's an interesting question. I don't think it's germane. I had thought, based on some reporting, that Nancy Pelosi was going to try to engineer an agreement with Kamala Harris not to run, perhaps by threatening to withhold campaign money from her. It seems like, though, she's given up on that, and she's willing to go forward. She'd prefer to go forward with the likelihood of Kamala Harris being the nominee instead of Joe Biden. There are some House members and some House districts that are competitive where they'd rather run with Joe Biden. You know, on Long Island, they'd rather run with Joe Biden. They're not crazy about running with Joe Biden, but they don't look at Kamala Harris as an upgrade. They look at it as a potentially bigger problem. But the belief is that there's, again, in the Pelosi wing of the party, which is a big wing now, the belief is there's no way to do it with Joe Biden. Maybe there'll be a pleasant surprise with Kamala Harris, despite the fact that she's not proven herself to be a great performer under pressure.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Jim, go ahead and unmute, please.
Hi, Mark. When you talk about ratcheting up, this is something I sent you a message about the other day. Do you ever think it could get to the point of the nuclear option? The nuclear option being Pelosi, Schumer, Jeffries quietly talk to cabinet members, see if they can get them on board with a potential vote to invoke the 25th. Go to Biden and say, hey, would be treachery, really, but it could go if it came down to this. I'm wondering if you think that they would get that serious about it.
Yeah.
So he's got the option. They've got the votes to vote the 25th, or you go out with a little bit of grace and resign.
Yeah, I didn't think so till yesterday. My friend Jennifer Jacobs at Bloomberg reported that some cabinet members are talking about it. I had ruled it out flatly, but obviously, if there is a piece of leverage, if there is something that would humiliate him, and look, given the president's demonstrated decline in acuity, if you were doing it on the merits, I think a lot of people would say, yes, the 25th Amendment would be invoked successfully. If you were doing it on the merits, I think there's certainly a case for that. If you look at the cabinet, and I did this morning after I started to think about this based on Jennifer's reporting, you know, they're Biden loyalists, but I couldn't rule out under some circumstances Pelosi convincing them to at least threaten it.
Right.
To at least threaten it. And then again, though, the problem is the psychology of Joe Biden. There's this paradox. The more you do the things that threaten, the less inclined he is to give in. And even though he's already said he understands he needs to step aside, and that all that was happening was working through the details, the ratcheting up and the anger at Pelosi and Obama is such that he may just say, I'll take the whole thing down with me. They're mine delegates and I'm keeping them. Now, the vice president, who's been a loyal soldier in this call she did today and in general, you know, I wonder what kind of pressure she'd come under, because obviously her if she turned on the president, that would be significant as well. I see no indication that she is, but there probably, if it hasn't already happened, there may be people who appeal to her to say you're the only one in a position to try to fix this. Thank you, Jim. Jacqueline, unmute, please.
Okay, so I have thoughts that go in different directions. First, is Kamala Harris being Indian American an issue? Like, is that baggage? Or because Asians Americans are less discriminated against than African Americans in this country, but at the same time, African Americans are more likely to get points for seeming American by some races. So it's kind of in the air for me. But anyways, also, I don't really know how being a woman plays into it, because the country seems to be moving forward faster on becoming less racist than becoming less sexist, from my point of view. And then, also, if the nominee is not Harris and the campaign dollars go back to super PAC money or wherever it goes, like not directly for the campaign but spent some other ways, I imagine that could lead to more attack ads. And I'm guessing that would be a problem, because attacks on Trump that are too negative don't seem to stick. Because if the dollars are not under management more and are sent to super PACs, then the campaign.
I don't know that the content would change. And in terms of accountability, you're right. Maybe they'd be more negative. But every question you've raised is a good one, and I don't know the answer to any of them.
Okay,
But
and
they're
then
all good
Kelly
questions.
seems really impressive in terms of resume and made me think, wow, but I thought if he's so interesting, why haven't I heard of him when I have family in Arizona? And also, I don't really think he adds geographic desirability as a candidate because Arizona is a state of transplants, so it doesn't have so there are not people from outside Arizona much who have an affinity for voting alongside Arizonans because it's
Is
like
there somebody? Sorry, go ahead.
so I think, and also because the Rust Belt is a big thing where Donald Trump has a slight advantage compared to other Republicans, and Arizona
Yeah.
is definitely not a Rust Belt state economically,
Yeah.
and that's another problem.
If Kamala Harris is the nominee and she would take your recommendation, who would you like her running mate to be?
Um, I like Whitmer because I've seen things in the news where she seems politically savvy about how to get something done while still seeming centrist.
Mm-hmm.
And because she's a Rust Belt candidate, because she's a Michigan governor. And I don't know a lot about Josh Shapiro, but at least he seems dynamic. But I think Kamala Harris, who I see is really smart, but I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris, but I think she's really dynamic. She's a brilliant campaigner. I just don't take her as seriously as maybe some other people out there.
All right. Part of my responsibility over the next few weeks and maybe longer is to help America pronounce it correctly. A lot of Republicans say it incorrectly on purpose, but it's Kamala. Kamala. Jacqueline, thank you very much. Roger, unmute, please.
Yes, I have 2 points. One, as a speech pathologist, I can say that Joe Biden's behavior indicates that he has significant cognitive decline, especially in the area of problem solving. And I think one can be very critical of his family for not intervening to get him out of this bad situation. Secondly, I fail to understand how Mark Kelly is a stronger VP candidate than Josh Shapiro, because Kelly is bland, where Shapiro has superb political skills. Also, Pennsylvania is critical to the Democrats, where I'm not sure Kelly would bring Arizona into play. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this here before, Roger. Thank you for those 2 things. It's just a reality of a Black woman and a Jewish man, or an observant Jewish man may just be a bridge too far for some voters. That's just the reality of human beings in life. I think that's one difference between them. His bio, the Kelly bio may be a little more beefed up and ready to be president. Josh Shapiro, although he is the commander in chief of the Pennsylvania National Guard, doesn't have the same national security experience that Kelly has, and that's sometimes a factor. But I think Shapiro would be strong too. But it seems like Republicans, at least, are more concerned about Kelly tonight than they are about Shapiro. So I don't think either of them would necessarily be a bad pick, but that's certainly where I hear some Republicans. The Republican emphasis in terms of concern is there. Thank you very much, Roger. Ray, I saw you had your hand up before, and I'm pretty sure I know what you want to talk about. So I'd love for you to come on and make whatever points you'd like to make.
And actually, I had 2. And one is I think that overall people are kind of underestimating Kamala Harris. What people don't talk a lot about is that she would energize young voters. She's really well received and well liked on college campuses. And those right now are the voters that they're staying away from the process because they see Biden as too old. And then the second thing, Mark, I had is a question. True or false? The biggest event today was Biden starting to bleed support from the Congressional Black Caucus. I think Dan mentioned that earlier, in which 4 members came out and said he should get out of the race.
I mean, Ray, absolutely. I do think the Moulton letter, the op-ed piece, is also significant because it shows that they're willing to get personal with him now. But there's no doubt that one of the backbones of any Democrat in trouble, you saw this with Bill Clinton too, is you've got to keep the Black Caucus and their constituency on board. And And again, I don't think these things are happening by accident. I think they're being orchestrated and sequenced. A lot of the people calling for her to get at is using the phrase "pass the torch," which is a phrase that he used when he ran the first time. And I think they're trying to do that to show him that he will be celebrated if he makes this decision. But no doubt that the campaign tonight would be concerned that other Black Caucus members and their constituencies might follow. That would be a problem. But again, and this is why over the course of the 3 weeks, I have more often been in the I don't think he's getting out school until the reporting I did yesterday, because he doesn't have to get out. There's nothing that forces his hand beyond the 25th Amendment. There's nothing that forces his hand. And he wants to be the nominee. He wants to beat Trump again. And he thinks he's the strongest candidate. The loss of donors or Black Caucus support are clearly the biggest threat. So you're right to raise those as a big problem. I should have emphasized more. And again, the question is, will there be more? Will there be more? Clyburn, I don't believe is privately as enthusiastic as he's forced to be publicly about Joe Biden staying as the nominee, because he's a national co-chair of the campaign. But I think he would be fine switching to Kamala Harris, even though I don't think he's very confident in her ability to win. But I think he's in that camp that says we need to go the best person we can get. Thank you, Ray. Sue, unmute, please.
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much for having this forum. I used to participate in your focus group, so I really appreciate this new iteration. I am one of the Democrats that feels that I have been lied to about Biden's situation. Many Democrat friends that I have feel the same way. I know a lot of us feel that if there were another candidate that came out of the convention, that there would be support behind that candidate and a lot of enthusiasm, especially if we had a younger candidate. And as far as Mark Kelly goes, I've said, like, in the last couple of weeks, if it was Kamala and Mark Kelly, that he would check all the boxes. For me, he's a border state senator. He got the support of Cindy McCain, so he definitely appeals to Republicans. He is a moderate. He is a Navy veteran. He is a former astronaut. He ticks a lot of boxes. And not to sound too crass, but his wife survived an assassination attempt as well. Yeah. Am I wrong in assuming that? I mean, I'm a base Democrat. I've been voting this way for 45 years, and I'm angry when I hear the campaign surrogates on TV saying, "Oh no, he got 14 million votes in the primary." I really didn't have a choice when I got my ballot. It was Biden or no one. So I don't understand why they aren't listening to the base Democrat like myself. Yeah. And I don't understand why they would possibly push to virtually nominate him in the next couple of days. And if they did that, is that binding? Or when they get
it's as binding as anything, which is to say, until he decides he wants to step down, he's the nominee. So it's kind of symbolically a toll booth to go through. But in terms of the Democratic Party rules and who the nominee is, the only difference is after he's nominated, if he did step down after he was nominated, the nominee would be picked by a small group of DNC officials and elected officials rather than the delegates themselves.
So it's not like if they virtually nominate him that there isn't another way to move him off the ticket, but it has to be his. I get it.
They can't remove him. It's his choice.
His choice.
Either way, it's his choice.
Is he?
Go ahead.
Is it truly? I mean, when you hear General O'Malley Dillon and you hear the other campaign surrogates on TV, I would love to think that they're just saying what they're saying because they're waiting for him to make the decision, and that they are actually showing him the real information and the real angst that everybody has
Yeah.
out there. Is
Yeah.
that the
Some of them are
reality?
showing, some of them are showing the real information. The reason, as I understand it, that she said what she said, some of the other people have said publicly what they've said, and what the president said is he wants the room to make this decision on his own terms. He doesn't want to be in a bunker. Now he's in a bunker because he's got COVID, but they don't want there to be this drumbeat of we're going to get you, we're going to get you. It's only a matter of time. He wants to try to do this on his own terms.
But
And
he's habitually a very slow decision maker.
he is indeed. He is indeed. And most people who are slow to decision makers either don't know that they are or don't care that they are. They're not susceptible to being rushed. So I want to ask you two questions before we let you go, and thank you for participating. First is, do you have a view of Project 2025?
I have read some about it, and it scares the living daylights out of me, just because I know that they tried to do this before, and I look at the kind of people that Trump wanted to put in to his administration, especially at the end, when he was trying to manipulate the results of the election. And it scares me that they would fire a lot of civil servants and make it a loyalty test. I was concerned when Clarence Thomas wrote his opinion and said, oh, we're going to come after, contraception. Does that mean they're going to come after interracial marriage, interreligious marriage? My daughter is adopted from China. Does that mean that my daughter can't marry her Jewish boyfriend? I worry about that. I worry about, my daughter, she's 22. What does this mean for her? I think it's very radical. It's scary. And I think it leads to a much too strong president. I think that the founding fathers never, ever would have contemplated that a felon would be running for the presidency, that a president would need to have immunity from anything that he did, because they would have expected that an honorable man at that point in time would have been elected president. Again, I understand that the people didn't elect the president, and we don't now, but it was a different, they never would have assumed any of that.
Right. Sue, let me ask you one more question. If it was Harris, Kelly against Trump, Vance, how would you feel about the Democrats' chances? Underdogs, favorites?
I think it would draw it to even, because if you put Trump and Vance, okay, Vance is young and he brings a lot of things to the ticket, his military experience, he's well-spoken, but Trump is still old. And then you go over here and you see Kamala Harris, who is young, and she does attract younger voters, and she does speak to a lot of issues that Democrats care about. And then you get Mark Kelly, who is a border state senator. And it would be easy enough for them to say, all right, yeah, there's been issues with the border so far, but this is a new administration. This is a new policy. We can get this done, because he understands exactly what's going on. And if I could just have an aside, I wish that somebody would have listened to me, but in the debate, if they had prepared Biden the correct way, every time Trump came out with one of his, lies, he should have said platitudes over policies, lies over legislation. I have policies, I have legislation, I have things that I have done. This man has platitudes and lies.
Very nice, Sue.
Would have
Thank
been,
you, Sue.
would have
Thank
been
you.
a different debate.
Yeah, that was awesome. Sue, thank you. So I want to talk as we close about Project 2025. I said this morning on the morning meeting, which seems like many years ago, but it was about 12 hours ago, that I thought Project 2025 was just kind of a ridiculous thing, and that it was all about process. I've been bombarded today, and you'll see in the chat this evening, with folks telling me I'm dead wrong. And I'm never afraid to admit I'm wrong or reluctant. It's clear that this is a really inspirational issue for the left. Someone in the chat, I assume someone from the right, says that Project 2025 is a white paper out of a think tank. Look up some of the programs the left-wing think tanks have put out. And of course, Donald Trump has repudiated it. But the press, just as the press never calls out the media for doing dictator on day one or bloodbath, the press doesn't call out the invocation of Project 2025. And it's clear to me from what I've heard today from folks, including a lot of women, that Project 2025 is a rallying point for the left in this election. And there's some indications that Kamala Harris, as the nominee, would use it even more than Joe Biden as a rallying cry, as an organizing tool, as a symbol to press turnout and persuasion. So despite the fact that I think it's ridiculous as in the substance, because it's a think tank and Trump's repudiated it, we're going to be talking more about that here. Very grateful. I want to end on time. So very grateful for you all to spend Friday night with us. I'm going to go have some sushi, my first real meal all day after being at the airport. But I appreciate you making time. We may convene over the weekend. We'll see what happens, but we'll certainly see you Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time for the morning meeting. We're switching it to 9 a.m. So we'll see you. We'll see you at 9 a.m. Eastern time on Monday, and maybe before. Grateful to you, all of you who participated, including Alex and others who spoke, and Dan. Sorry we didn't get to everybody who had their hands up, including Amy, but hopefully you'll come back and we'll have another opportunity. Have a good evening, good weekend, and we'll see you no later than Monday morning. Good night.